What's going on, guys? Glad to see you guys back. Another episode from the Travelers Podcast. Reggie, Chris, before we start, make sure you should like, subscribe, and let's get rolling.
All right.
So today we're going to chat a little bit about you when you were in the insurance business. So my first question to you is, because I got to make sure we're good here, um, give us a little bit of a background of your earlier career selling insurance and when you were a newlywed.
Okay. All right. So I got married in September of 1980. And at that time, I was, selling insurance, life insurance for Northwestern Mutual, which is a great company. Shout out to them, free plug, the Quiet Company. And great returns, good company. Anyway, I did that for, I think, about 3 years, and then, my confidence was just probably a 2 out of 10 on a good day.
What?
No self-esteem, yeah. My whole background is whole nother area of that we can explore, but my confidence level was just not there. I was cocky, but not confident. Arrogant, but not confident. Self-esteem, real small. Okay? But I was I was always ready. Was always on alert, always, kind of ready. And we were 21, barely 21 when we got married. And we basically rented a little house or a duplex for $190 a month. And we got broke into 4 times in the first year at that property. We had a peeping Tom. We had a couple drunks. We were drunk on the porch one night. We had somebody break into the basement and one other straggler in there. Tough times, difficult, challenging times. The first couple of years, we lived there, and I was struggling to make a living, in the insurance world. And back then, a lot of the furnaces you heated were with oil, heating oil, they called it, okay? The oil truck would pull up a big old long hose, dump this oil in this 500-gallon tank in your basement. Then you had what's called an octopus furnace, which is the ductwork was like this big around. I mean, you couldn't walk around in the basement, right? And you had to pay for the oil up front. It's not like the gas bills like today, where you give you the gas and you get to heat it all winter, whether you can afford it or not, and then they deal with it in the spring. You had to pay for it up front. And so, dude, we were running low, we were running out. I didn't have the money, so I put a little ad in this little magazine called The Thrifty Nickel. And people would convert their oil furnaces to gas. And they had this oil in the bottom of they still had oil left over in their tanks. Right. And so I would say, hey, I'll pay you 50 cents a gallon for your oil if, I can siphon it out. So, dude, I had this little pickup truck that my father-in-law had in like a, basically a garbage can container. And I would go around, man, I would take the hose, throw it in there, and I would siphon it down into that, and I'd get the oil. Brutal. Tough times. Wouldn't change that for anything. We had a electrical spool in our apartment with a little tablecloth on it. That was our dining room table. Spam was pretty much the meal of the day. That and tuna fish and, tuna salad and, those kinds of things, And it was tough. But man, I wouldn't change any of that. Never. Because that taught me to just be a scrapper, and fight, and really, kind of get after it. So when I, kind of got out of the insurance business, I went to work for a appliance store, and I sold appliances. And it was like a part-time gig. And actually it wasn't, because I didn't have kids then. So I was working full-time there. But in the mornings, I had all this energy, so I would go to the Y and open up our local YMCA, which at that time was one of the largest Ys in the entire country. So I would get there like a little after 4, have this big old thing of keys, turn all the lights on, okay? And I just chill, crank the tunes, listen to some rock and roll, and listen and basically hit the jacuzzi for like 15, 20 minutes. Take a quick shower, I open it up at 5. There'd be people waiting outside at 5 wanting to get in. The previous guy would let him in early. I never let anybody in early. 5 o'clock, done. They called and complained, filed a complaint against me. I'm like, no, open at 5. You're fine. Okay. So at that time, there's this guy, this murderer running around. His name is Ray Lee Stewart. And he had murdered like 4 people in like a 7 to a 10-day period. It was brutal. So I'm like 23, whatever years, 22, 23 years old. I'm running around. I'm like, it's freaking me out a little bit, They caught him. Then he escaped. Escaped from jail. So he's running around, and I'm like, a little bit freaked out, and they caught him again. Anyway, so then from that point, I was really needing to get in a job. And so I got a job at Commonwealth Edison at the time. And basically, prior to that, we had bought 4 rental properties within a year, my wife and I. So I was already in the rental game. They're all clunker properties, C properties, D properties. Most of them were Section 8 properties, and I would, do my best to do the maintenance and things on them as best as I could. And I get this job at Commonwealth Edison. I was a meter reader. So back then, when you were a meter reader, they would give you basically a IBM, they would call it, like an IBM deck of cards, right? Or then you'd be this many or this many. You'd have A, B, C, you'd have all these different routes for the month, And they'd give that to you, and when you read the meters, when you read all those meters, and you were done, you're done for the day. So I would hustle, I'd hop fences, and I'd get done early. Sometimes I'd be getting on 11:30, sometimes 12:30, most times 1:30. I'd have all this time in my hand, right? And by the way, a little sidebar, so we gave this little pepper spray.
Pepper spray?
Little pepper spray for the dogs. For the dogs. And so I was in my 90-day probationary period. And there's this dog, dude. There's this dog chained to the meter. He's chained to the meter. And you would like click the can. And if that dog would start to cower, that means somebody had trained it. Like the meter reader had trained it. Because whenever you sprayed it, you would just click, so the dog would that's a bad deal, I had this dog at bay. He was under control, right? The owner comes out to see what's going on. Another dog comes out. Took my off, the one dog, the other dog bit me. Put the clamps on me, man. Put the clamps on me. Oh my gosh. So, come on, man. You got a rip in my pants, I'm tooling around, and then dude, an hour later, there's this little wiener dog running around. Pregnant wiener dog, loose. Had my big boots, boom, gone. Owner comes out all mad. I don't know if this is gonna a PETA issue or what, but anyway, so that dog goes tumbling around, he was gone, and the owner was mad. I said, dude, your dog's on a leash, he's running loose, But, the dogs are crazy. 2 things would happen with a dog when you sprayed it. 99% of the time you spray that dog, you know, because it's coming at you. You got to defend yourself, you know. And it would take off, it'd rub its nose in the grass trying to get rid of the pepper. Or it would get madder. And sometimes they would get really mad. And it was crazy, right? So that was the world, you know, that I lived in. And I started thinking, okay, I'm in the meter reading department, I'm there, you know, that's a union company. So you get bumped up just for, you know, you can post jobs, you know. And I think I told this story in another episode. I was wanting to, you know, improve myself. So, you know, line school opens up to be a lineman. And so there's this pole in our backyard. So I got these, you know, got all the equipment. I'm climbing and practicing, you know, trying to get up and climb down and get up and climb down. And line school opened up for 1 week, where you would try for 1 week to see if you qualified for the real line school, right? And so I made it the whole week. And you would be like on a pole, there'd be another pole, and you're like playing catch with a football between poles. If you threw a bad pass, you had to go all the way back down and come all the way back up on the gaffs, you know, but if you drop the ball, same thing. So, I mean, and you're strapped in and you're like leaning, I mean, you're, you know, it's a little sketchy, you know, you're 20 feet, 30 feet up in the air. And so I get all done. I go in the trailer, you know, the instructors said, hey, you know, you made it the week. I said, yeah. He said, you can go on, you know, because you qualified. You can go on, but we don't think you should. And I said, well, why? Yeah, they said, well, why not? Well, you look scared. Well, yeah, of course I'm scared. Who isn't scared? Well, but you look really scared. I'm like, that's probably true, you know? And so they said, yeah, we just don't. I said, okay, these guys are the experts. They're telling me no, and I'm good. No problem. So line school was, you know, didn't happen, you know? And so I had all this time, and Sandy and I were married, and we have energy, you know, and I'm like, you know, I love this real estate thing. Why don't I get my license and sell real estate? I get done at 11:30 sometimes or 2 o'clock. We have no children, you know. Why not? I can find a better deal, you know, in these houses or these rentals, you know. So I get my real estate license. I sell part-time. I'm a salesman a month a couple times as a part-time agent. And I thought, okay, so I want to save my money. And when our daughter's born, 3-week notice, gone. I'm out. Okay? So I'm saving my money, and Chris is born. And I'm telling all these guys, well, first of all, I got to tell you something about, so I'm in the union, okay, which I loathe the environment I was in. It was in the storeroom. By that time, I was in the storeroom, which basically means you see the big semis driving down the road, and they got transformers and all these different pieces of equipment. You're delivering them to the substations, and they're putting them in people's houses, all these kinds of things. I just hated it. I hated the environment. It was conducive to basically lazy people, and sorry, ComEd people that work there. That's the way it is. But anyway, it's conducive to the, you know, a union mentality where you do the bare minimum, which is where I was at. I'm not saying all unions are like that, but this particular union and where I was, that's what it was, you know. It was just not my deal. Didn't like it. Just wasn't me, you know. And I always had this thing in the back of my brain, Reggie, that I really failed in sales. It just haunted me. It's like, okay, I want to try it again. And I knew that at age 26, 27, it'd be way easier to try than age 40 or whatever. I get sucked into the vortex of, you know. And so I had saved up a little bit of money that was all at ComEd. You know, they had a match and all that kind of stuff. So I had like $10,000 to my name. And I was ready to give, you know, my notice, right? And never told my family. Didn't tell anybody. Just mainly told the guys at work, and they're never going to quit. Oh yeah, I'm out. So I give my notice, and when that was going on, another job opening came up. Where at that time I was making like $25,000 a year. I could have made $40,000 a year. All benefits, health, retirement, working in a substation. Okay? I'm like, oh man, I don't know. This might be no. I'd already given my notice. No, I'm not budging. I'm launching. I'm out. You know? And so I did it. 3 weeks. I didn't like just like not look back. I took I got a bunch of dynamite, a bunch of explosives, put them on a bridge, blew it up. Gone. Burned the bridge behind me. Nothing left but cinders behind me. Nothing. Straight ahead, And so that's kind of, how that started, with that.
So you're making all these changes.
Mm-hmm.
What does your family think about all of this?
Well, there's two families. Okay? There's my pops, my dad and my stepmom. And I'm not going to tell you who said what, because that'd be really unfair to them. Just never would do that. But some people in my family said, you're too ornery, you're never going to make it. Never going to make it in sales. Never going to make it in the business. You're too ornery, you can't get around with people. Okay, thank you for that motivation. But my dad, literally factory guy, right? He was in kind of a quasi-management thing, and he would do what's called time study, where he would like time people.
Yep, I know
things
those.
like that,
yeah.
and figure out how much they could get paid based upon the time study. And my dad went from one paycheck to the next paycheck to the next paycheck to the next paycheck. Never missed a paycheck. My dad, ultra conservative. So I tell my dad, and my dad's like, oh, I can't believe you're doing that. You got that wife, you got that little baby. What are you thinking? What are you doing? You've got a great company, great benefits, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, Dad, I loathe my job. I'm out. I have to try this again. I have to try sales again. And okay. And my other side, my wife's side, pretty supportive, pretty supportive. And my wife, impeccable, just right there. Because she knew I was miserable, man. Like coming home and, oh my gosh, man. Back then, a little sidebar. So you're from around here, so you guys might remember this. It's crazy. So every day when I was a meter reader, I'd crush it, right? I would bring my lunchbox. I always had like this big thing of milk. Okay? I'd drink my milk, and I forgot about this. And one day I went, oh man, I got a stomachache. Drank more milk. Well, that day, they came out with an announcement. Jewel Foods had salmonella in their milk.
Oh.
And people had died. People had died. People died from the milk, and I'm just chugging away, baby. I'm just drinking it up, Oh my gosh. Woo, It's crazy, man. Crazy. Yeah, crazy. Yeah, and they came to me. It's crazy. I signed a waiver, and the guys came, the ComEd had somebody, and they came. They like, oh yeah, I signed this waiver. We're gonna give you like, a couple of days pay or whatever. Like, okay, fine. I mean, somebody made a mistake, no big deal. Lawyers didn't care, man. 6 months later, oh no, it doesn't matter that you signed that waiver. You can still join our class action. I'm like, dude, lose the number. I'm out. I'm not suing anybody because somebody made a mistake. I'm okay. ComEd paid for me when I was gone. I was sick for a couple, 3 days, whatever. So anyway, as this, I don't know how I forgot about that. It's a cool part of the story, So anyway, so I start launching that, and Sandy was just incredibly supportive, and she was a stay-home mom. And she stayed home. She didn't work, outside the home. She stayed right there and raised the kids, and we had a little shop in there where she'd snip hair for a couple days a week, for a while. But mainly she stayed home, So.
Okay. That's crazy. So What are some of the challenges that you faced? Because it's a big move, it's a big change.
Monster changes. Monster. So this happened in June. So like June 1st, roughly, I started. Okay. Another thing that happened too is a loan officer had interviewed me, head of a mortgage department. He wanted me to be a loan officer. And I considered that pretty strongly.
Okay.
Because I knew enough about loans and real estate and like, well, but I just did the real estate thing, right? So remember the ComEd thing, like I had $10,000 at ComEd. So I go to HR, I tell them, hey, I'm leaving, blah, blah, blah. When can I get my check? I say, oh, about 2 weeks, So all my savings, okay? And the other thing too is when I worked for a company, which you've heard of, Remax. When Remax is you pay a desk fee, which was like $1,000. The desk fee every month. Whether you sell anything or not, you pay a desk fee. Because to me, I'm like, look, I'm burning the bridge. If I'm going to do this, I want all the money.
Right.
I'm not splitting with a broker. I want 100% of my commissions. I'm going all the chips right in the middle. I'm going all in. So a month goes by, no check. 6 weeks goes by, no check. I'm like, I call. I say, hey, what's going on? My check. I'm writing bills, and I'm running out of cash, I haven't sold anything, the pipeline, I have no pipeline, no business to just kind of walk into. I had to start from scratch, there's a problem with the paperwork, so it's going to be like a few more weeks. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, no, what am I supposed to do? Well, why don't you borrow money like off your credit card and get like a cash advance, or why don't you do? I'm like, what? Are you crazy? Who are you people? So that happened. That was my first glitch, right? And so, all right, I'm rolling, and I was not selling anything. I mean, it was tough. It was slow going. It was tough, and then finally, I started to sell something. I sold a clunker building to a guy. I sold a little house to another person. Sold a couple other things. I'm thinking, oh, okay, we're starting to roll a little bit, And so I think I made a good decision. I'm starting to make a little bit of money. I can see the big picture. So October 19th happens of 1987.
Okay, what's that?
Black Monday. When we're done, and look this up online, Black Monday. You're not going to believe this. It's a Monday. Sandy and I, we take Carissa to Galena on a little getaway just to have some little family time. The stock market craters. The largest drop, percentage-wise, to this day in the history of the country occurred on October 19th, 1987. It dropped 23% in one day. The S&P dropped 30% in one day.
That's insane. Okay.
Another thing too, at that time, interest rates were like 12%. And they're not really getting 30-year loans. They're getting like balloons to get 10% for 5 years. They're getting like a 5-year arm, and then it adjusts. Rates are high, the market craters, and I'm like, wow, what's happening right now? What's going on? Oh my gosh. And so that happens. And I started, like I said, kind of rolling and trying to sell some things. And then this clown in our office, okay, in the real estate world back then, I'm not even sure how it is right now, but in the world back then, if you had a listing and somebody calls on your listing, you get the call. That's your listing. That's your lead. I'm selling your house. I have it listed. I get the lead.
Right.
Well, this clown in our office, I'd be down there doing phone calls at night. This clown, that phone ring, boom, he picked the phone up. Picked the phone up. Stealing my leads. I'm like, I just ripped into him. I can't really probably say some of the things here, what happened. I laid into him and basically said, you stay away from me. Don't you ever talk to me again. you stay away from me. Don't you ever think about taking food off of my table when I'm trying to feed my family. And this guy, unbeknownst to me, Bill tells Bob, Bob tells Marion, and this is Remax, right? So there's 3 agents. So 2 days in 1987, before Christmas, I get called into the office, and I'm starting to roll. I'm starting to see, okay, this thing's going to work. I've made a good decision, right? So 2 days before Christmas, I get called into the owner's office, and he says, Chris, we have to let you go. I'm like, why? Well, apparently you got into an argument with Bill, and Bill told Bob, and Bob told Marion, and they're leaving unless we fire you. And I'm like, you have to be kidding me. Like, no, I'm sorry. Here's your 30-day notice, you know. And I'm like, okay.
What?
This is unbelievable to me that somebody would be so completely foolish to do that and let basically the prisoners run the asylum, which is what they did, right? And so one door closes and it just closes. Bloody my nose, right? Crushed my spirit before Christmas. I mean, it was horrible. But another one opened. And I said, okay. One of the episodes I talked about, this guy named Clayton. Clayton had the Mercedes. Dude, I knew who he was because I read meters. I knew these people. You know, he owned this, he owned that, he owned all this property. And I'm like, you know, I'm just going to call on that guy and see if I can go work for him and pay him a desk fee and keep all the commissions. Be by myself. I know he works alone. He's quiet. I mean, no agents, nobody around the water cooler, no gossiping. I just want to work, man. I want to work and get the job done, you know? And so I called on him, and I talked about this in another episode, but basically he sent me to a guy named Stu, who was his partner in the development company. And long story short, I went to work with Clayton, and that changed my whole trajectory, my whole world. I had no idea what development even was, and what it even meant, you know. And Clayton was this old school guy, super private, and you know, dude, trying to get him to give you info was like glacier pace. It was brutal. He was just really private, you know. I'm full of this energy, and I want to learn, you know. And he's like, and one thing he taught me is he said, and this is a whole nother episode, but we could talk, we always talk about other episodes, but this is one that's a real good one. He said, this is about real estate. He said, if you control it or you own it, they can't go around you. You're going to make money. I go, what do you mean?
Who's they? Sorry.
Other people, competitors, right? He said, if you own it or control it, in other words, if you tie it up with a contract, if you do an option, you know, or if you own it, nobody can go around you. You're going to make money. I'm like, that sounds great, but I've got no money. And so I learned that, and I think that it's super important that we recognize that things get thrown in your path, man. You got a couple choices. You can lay down and get run over. You can go around them, or you go through them. I'm bullheaded, so I go through them, you know. I just smash my way through them, you know, and we make it work. But you also have to recognize that sometimes opportunities aren't meant to happen, you know, and you need to listen to that as well. There's too many things. There's too many obstacles. There's too many things that could prevent you from doing things, right? So if you fast forward a little bit, I think it's important to know that the scrappiness that was required for what I did. I mean, I would go down to my office at night. Sandy would be home with Krista. I had a little picture of Sandy and Krista next to my phone. And I would make phone calls. Call reluctance, it's called, when I don't want to make phone calls.
Right.
I would call for sale by owners who eat their young. I mean, they're brutal. They're brutal, you know. It's brutal. And so it's like, I would call them. I would call expired listings. I would just make phone calls to try to get appointments and things.
Right.
And dude, I would put on seminars. I put on first-time buyer seminar. I would invite people. I have a lender. I have a title company. I get up there and talk about how buyers, can try to find a home.
Wow.
People should be doing that now, to be honest. Okay? How do you get your first home? What do I got to do? How much money do I need down? What's the price point? What about my credit? All those things. I had a lender there, title company there. I was there, and who they think? They're going to call me. They're going to buy, right? I had for sale by owner seminars. I would show people and tell people how to sell their home. And when they were tired of playing, they called me. I made money. I had builder seminars. How to, wanting to build a home, here's what you need to do. And I would introduce them to a builder, and I'd make money. All these different things just in your brain, right? You're being creative, trying to think of outside the typical real estate person, right? The real estate agent, I should say, as in today. And man, this stuff worked, man. I mean, it just worked. And the thing of it is that I always made money doing that. I always get at least one sale. Mm-hmm. I had no reputation. I had no name. I had no track record. But I was just scrappy. And I also interviewed 4 agents, which we talked about, I think. I interviewed 4 real estate agents. Okay? One of them, I said, my question was, I'd take them to lunch. And one of them was, the question was always the same. What do I have to do to be successful in this business? I asked each one of them, and each one of them had a different answer. The first one says, turn your weakness into a strength. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, your weakness is you're with a small office, right? Okay. You don't have all these agents. You don't have the advertise. You don't have the brand. I said, yeah, but your strength, you make your own decisions, right? I said, yes. You make your own decisions. If a commission's 7%, you want to cut it to 5.5% to get a deal? Yes. Do you have your own budget for advertising? Yes. Can you negotiate on your own anything? Yes. So, weakness, strength. I'll never forget the first time I sold a listing for $100,000. I went up like one of the top agents in town. 2 other agents. And I told them, I said, you need this to your house, you do this to your house, you do this to your house. And by the way, I make all the decisions. I got the listing. Sold that house with an in-ground pool, sold that house in 20 days. 20 days.
That was fast.
Back then, yeah. The second one said, the most important thing that you do is you sell you. And I said, what do you mean? He said, it doesn't matter if you're this great superstar, reputation, whatever, agent. People have to trust you. So you sell Chris. When you sell Chris, honor, integrity, do what you're going to say, service. Guess what? They will follow you anywhere and they will be loyal. And this at the time was the #1 agent in town. At that time in 1987, 88, 89. Dude, this guy's crushed like $20 million a year, $30 million a year. To this day, his son represents me in a lot of my transactions.
Wow.
Okay? The third guy says, we meet him for lunch, and he's got, back then you everybody wore suit coats, and ties and stuff. He whips out, he said, well, here's an offer here for $200,000. Here's another one here, a listing for like $180,000. I said, you need to sell the higher properties because you make more money. So what do you mean? He said, well, it takes just as much effort, but you make more money. So the for sale, the small stuff, that's okay, but to make more money, you sell higher priced properties, which at that time, I live in a $60,000 house. And I was so intimidated, like, how am I going to tell somebody that owns a house for $200,000, me living in a little $60,000 house, how am I going to tell them how to sell? I have no credibility. That was just my own perception, And so, okay. But the fourth one was the most important one. He said, buy rental property. So what do you mean? He said, you buy one single family house every year for 10 years, you pay it off, and in 10 years, you'll be a millionaire. All different people, all different walks, all different things to learn, right? That's the techniques of learning the business, okay? So I'm doing some of that, right? And I'm rolling. I'm making a living, but I'm not really where I want to be. You know, I want to really like get after it. You know, I'm making a living, and sometimes I really wasn't really making a living. You know, it's tough. But overall, I did okay. Did semi good, but not really what I wanted to do. But I would like drive around subdivisions, right? And I would like look at houses like, oh my gosh, if I could just live in a house like that, or if I could like build a house like that, or man, that is really cool, you know. And then the development thing kept ticking me, you know. And I did a deal with Clayton. I did all the work. All the work. It was his deal. Some guy approached him. He had the land. So Clayton and him split it. It was like a $250,000 of profit. Okay, I was like burning firewood out there. I was all these big trees. I'm like burning with tire. I mean, we're just building this road, right? I'm selling lots. And the take was like $250,000. Well, Clayton got 125, and the other guy, the owner, got 125 profit, right?
Wow.
And so Clayton never offered me a dime, man. Never. And so, man, dude. So I finally had the courage to come up to him and ask him, you know, and he paid me 25 grand. So I made 25 grand, which is a lot of money to a, you know, 30-year-old kid back then, you know? And I realized, okay, this development thing, and by then I'd been selling for builders, see, because I would not just sell a lot, I'd sell a building deal. I make 5% on 200,000 or whatever. And so this development thing is like very interesting. You know, I would like to do this development thing. Be a developer. Wow, that would be cool, you know. And other episodes, I talk about paying down my debt. So all these clunkers I had, these 4 buildings, they were debt-free. I owned them because I never took the profits. I took the cash flow, paid down the money, paid down the money, paid down the money. No more loans. So call my lawyer. I said, hey, I'd like to do some kind of a partnership. I'd like to be a general partner. I need like 5 investors to put up 50 grand each. I've already got 2 of them sold. He said, what are you doing? What are you doing? I told him, I have this piece of property. There are 2 other people trying to buy it. I want to buy it. And he said, hang on a minute. Give me an hour. He calls me back. He says, so and so and so and I, we'll do the deal. I said, what do you mean? No, we're going to do the deal. And we'll split the profits with you. Which was, at that time, I was like, okay, great. And so at that time, I sold the most expensive lot in Roscoe, or where this was in Winnebago County. It's like $60,000 lot.
Wait.
So I have to tell you the whole thing. Hang on. I have to tell you the whole thing. And so we get through all that. And then I learned afterwards, right, that I'd have made way more money than doing the 5 investors than giving these guys half the profit. I still made $250,000 over a 5-year period. But if I'd done what I really set out to do and had 5 investors put up 50 grand, pay them a fixed return, not a percentage of the profits, but a fixed return, I would have made more money. So I thought, okay, that will never happen again. Yeah. You had a question?
So you do your biggest deal.
What is it?
You did your biggest deal.
I did, you said.
How did you find that property? How did you do the development?
I basically, I'm like a bulldog, right? I just got the vice grips on, I don't let go, you know? And so I just had this piece of property, a beautiful piece of property. I loved Roscoe, I loved the location. You know, I'd done some successful stuff up there. It was just a beautiful community, beautiful trees. I mean, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself for something else, but I just love the location. And so by the time I cold called the guy, I go see him at his house, and he was Greek, so he was a little tough to deal with, you know, a little challenging, but and then he had 2 other people trying to buy it. And one of them was established builder and broker, husband and wife. I snuck in there and I got it.
What?
First deal. Yeah. First deal. Yeah.
How? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, why were you so different than the already established husband and wife?
Because I sold myself on what I was going to do.
Okay.
I think I paid him just a little bit more too. That's always helpful. And then I gave him access to his property. So, yeah, I worked the deal. Yeah. Right. I made more money in that deal, probably in the commissions, than I did the deal, because I sold half the houses in there. At that time, those houses were selling for $350,000. And I made 5%. I sold a bunch of them, put up a couple spec homes, made some money there. So kind of started to learn a little bit more and expand, the financial thing. So before we close, though, I think there's one more question in there.
Yeah.
Right? Question 7, I think.
My next question, before you interrupted me.
Yes. I'm allowed to do that.
So you figured out by not having partners, the money is greater.
Yes.
Elaborate on that.
Well, you're basically, if you have partners, you're working for 50%. You're working for half the money, but you're doing the same work. You're doing the same amount of work for half the money. I mean, if you were, pick a profession. I mean, if you were a plumber and you're working for Acme Plumbing, you're getting a wage, and part of your wages that are being billed, remember, part of the invoices that are being billed, well, a plumber's going to charge you $80, $100, $150, whatever, just for a service call. You don't get that money. Owner does.
The owner does, yeah.
But you do it yourself, it's your money. Sure, you got to buy a truck, you got to buy tools, you got to have insurance, right? There's no medical anymore.
That's right.
No retirement anymore, but you're making all the money. So you have to decide. My philosophy has always been, if I believe in this project, why am I going to bring in other people? If I really believe in the project, I'll do it myself. Yeah.
Lesson learned there.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah.
So what about your first development without any partners? Tell me about that.
Okay. So the first one took me 5 years. I made about $50,000 per year average, which was, decent, but not like, oh my gosh, this is like, no. It helped me, understand that world. So the whole company, our whole organization, everything that we did started with $10,000. We're at 46 minutes. I don't know if we should keep
rolling.
going.
This
Okay.
is good.
I started with $10,000 of my own money. Everything, my whole company. Everything we did started with $10,000 of my own money.
That was the money from
No, this is now, I'm living,
Okay.
This is my own savings. I started with $10,000. Okay? This friend of mine calls me. He says, hey, I've got this opportunity to do this development. And there's 2 properties. There's a road. The owner has this one. He's going to develop himself. He also tied up this. He's got them both tied up. He's developing this one, going to build his own houses. He wants to sell this one. Are you interested? And I'm like, well, that's way far out of the way, man. That's way out there. That's a long ways. He said, yeah, but it seems to be that's maybe where the things are moving, right? I'm like, okay. I don't have the money. He said, he'll take back a second. So what do you mean? He'll take back 20%. You can use the 20%. Use that equity to get a loan. Go to the bank. Go through the whole bank. This will crack you up. Go through the whole banking thing. Doesn't matter that I own these properties. I own a property worth about $150,000 at that time. Free and clear. I've never done a deal. This is $1 million for the land. Okay? And it's like, okay, he's a little light. The guy says, Chris, he talked to my attorney, Chris, he's a little light. To this day, that banker, I kid him all the time about that statement. Because now I'm one of their best customers. He's a little light. Remember when you said that to me?
I remember.
Remember when you said that to me? Remember we had that conversation? Yeah, I remember, Bruce. Yeah, remember that, Bruce? Yeah, I remember.
He's not saying that.
He's a little light. So anyway, so this is what happened. So I couldn't get the money. So I go to hard money lender. At that time, I had to pay like 8%. The market rate is like 6%. So I'm 8%, 5-year loan. I told Tony, it's okay, Tony, here's what's going to happen. 5-year loan, 20% down. Here we go. And the 20% down, by the way, no interest for 2 years. Okay? So I said to my wife, we sat down, I said, here's what we're going to do. I said, we're going to take all the proceeds, no matter what, pay down the loan. Pay down the loan. Pay down the loan. So all those proceeds, pay down that loan. I go in there and Tony would say, Chris, no, you don't need to come in. He would come out. You know, I had a little old school handbook. So he would come out and say, Chris, you don't need to keep coming in and making these payments. You're way far ahead. You're fine.
But that's what.
No, Tony. Remember I told you I'm going to pay the loan off. I want to pay the loan off. Yeah, but it's not due for like another 3 years, another 4 years. I'm paying the loan off. So I paid him off, paid the other one off, and there was like 75 lots. I think I had close to 30. No debt.
Are you serious?
No debt. Well, it was well over $1 million I had in lots with no debt.
This was a great episode. I'm just amazed with all of the nuggets you were able to share.
Yeah.
But next week we're gonna expand on this one. So
Part
see
2.
you guys next week.
Stay tuned.